Payday came 2 weeks ago, the income was solid, and yet the visible balance still looks thin, like the money quietly slipped away somewhere between rent, groceries, and a dozen forgettable little moments, without one big purchase to blame. Nothing on the list looks reckless. It's coffee, a subscription, a takeout order, small purchases that only add up to a problem once you stop looking closely. This isn't a one-off bad month either. Scroll back further, and it's almost the same story every time: decent income in, thin balance by the middle, no clear villain to blame. Here's the strange fix that actually works. Some people build savings by making themselves feel poorer than they are, not through sacrifice, through friction. By the end, you'll know how to set it up tonight. Behavioral researchers have tested this exact question for years, and the answer isn't about willpower at all. It's about what the brain treats as available in the first place. Here's the plan: why hiding money from yourself actually works, the setup that makes it easy, and the one catch that stops it from backfiring. Economists call this mental accounting. Money is technically interchangeable, but the brain quietly sorts it into buckets anyway, and each bucket ends up with its own unspoken rules for what's safe to touch. Money sitting in checking feels safe to spend on almost anything right now. It's the bucket labeled available, so the brain treats it exactly that way without a second thought. Move that same money into a separate, less visible account, and the brain treats it completely differently, even though nothing about the money itself, its value, or its availability has actually changed at all. This isn't self-deception, it's changing a setting. The less visible the money is, the less it competes with tonight's impulse for the exact same decision. The brain didn't evolve to track a dozen digital account balances. It evolved to notice what's close and obvious, and to quietly ignore whatever sits just out of view. In one well-known study, households given a savings account that was deliberately harder to withdraw from, no debit card, a locked box, or a set date, ended up holding 82% more savings after 12 months than a similar group using an ordinary account. A separate classic experiment found some people were willing to pay up to 100% more for the exact same item. When paying by card instead of handing over visible cash, same product, same value, wildly different willingness to part with it. The first setup is the simplest: a second account with an automatic transfer the day pay lands, so the money leaves before it ever feels spendable. The catch is that many banks show both accounts on the exact same screen, side by side. If the second number is still sitting right there in plain view, some of the hiding effect quietly disappears. The pattern is consistent. The further the account sits from your everyday view, the harder it becomes to treat that money as spendable, and the more the friction actually helps. The second setup renames the account after a real goal: a deposit, a trip, an emergency buffer, so withdrawing feels like breaking a promise, not just moving numbers. The catch is that a label alone won't stop a determined withdrawal. It raises the friction. It doesn't remove the option entirely. The third setup goes further: a savings account at a completely different bank, with no app icon sitting on the home screen and no easy one-tap transfer button anywhere in sight. The catch is real emergencies. If moving money takes 3 days and 2 logins, that friction protects you from tonight, and briefly gets in the way of a genuine crisis too. Most of the time, that same friction works in your favor. A flash sale, a late-night impulse, a buy now button, the extra step is usually just enough to let the urge pass on its own. This works whether income is steady or irregular, whether you rent or own, and whether you're saving for a deposit, a buffer, retirement further down the road, or simply some breathing room this year. The common mistake is going too far, hiding money so completely that you also stop checking anything at all, and a forgotten bill or a quietly declined payment does more damage than the impulse spending it was meant to prevent. So pause on this for a second. In your household, is the real risk spending too easily, or has hiding money ever meant you stopped paying attention altogether? Here's the sober part: friction only slows down spending you were already tempted by. It can't create money that isn't there, and it won't fix a budget that's genuinely underwater no matter how well the accounts are hidden. Hide too much too fast, and the visible account can run dry before the next payday even arrives, turning a genuinely helpful habit into overdraft fees, and a brand new kind of stress to manage. A common starting point is a small visible buffer, often around $50, left sitting deliberately in checking, low enough to keep impulse spending honest, but still high enough to avoid a painful, embarrassing overdraft. Add one more rule: a 24-hour wait before moving hidden money back out. It doesn't block the withdrawal, it just removes the impulse from the decision entirely. Total avoidance has its own hidden cost too. Subscriptions renew, fees creep in, and a checking account nobody watches can quietly leak money in a completely different direction. Both failure modes come from the same root cause: not enough attention paid to your own money, just aimed in opposite directions. You'll know it's working when a low checking balance stops feeling alarming, and reaching a hidden account for an impulse buy starts feeling like more effort than it's worth. This is general information, not a guarantee. The right setup depends on your income, your bills, and how your specific bank happens to display your accounts. The goal isn't to disappear from your own finances. It's to check in on your own schedule, instead of every account quietly competing for attention every single day. Tonight, open a second account, ideally at a different bank, rename it after something real, automate a transfer for the day pay lands, and remove the shortcut that makes it too easy to peek whenever the urge shows up. Start with just one hidden account. A simple system you'll actually keep running beats an elaborate one you quietly abandon by the second month. Once it's set up, you don't need to resist Friday night through sheer force ever again. The money already left the decision before Friday night even started, so there's nothing left to argue with yourself about. Pick one day a month to actually look. That's enough to catch problems early, without turning your own savings into something to obsess over daily. This is general information, not personal advice. The right setup depends on your income, your bank, and your goals. Set the friction once, check in monthly, and let it quietly do the work. Subscribe to this channel for more clear money steps like this.